I have Chris Sprance on the call with me today as well, and he'll be helping me
Hello.
discuss stuff.
Guys, can all hear us in Twitch land? Everything sound alright? Cool.
All right, so today we're going to start having these just to kind of do some, let you guys kind of know what we're doing. We're going to start having more of these. We're going to call them dev talks over the next couple months, and even longer if we need to have them or we want to have them, and you guys appreciate them. Uh, but in general, what we're going to do is focus on specific topics of the game, specific areas of the game. And today we'll be talking a lot, specifically about caves, going to why we have them and kind of our future plans for the caves. And then also with the vehicles, we'll be showing the current vehicles in the game and kind of why and some of the plans for the vehicles in the future. What type of vehicles we're going to be looking at adding and how we're going to be modifying the vehicle system as well. So those will be our main two topics today. Is just the caves and vehicles, and that's what we'll be focusing on. If you do have other questions, feel free to ask those in the chat though, on Twitch. And we do have other team members in here. Jen's in here, who's our community manager as well, and she can help answer any questions like that. And I'll try to watch and see if I miss any questions, but if I do, hopefully somebody will point out that I missed the questions. Anyway, we'll try to keep these to about 30 minutes so they're not too long. So to start with, I'm going to run up to the cave that's probably, it hasn't been in the game the longest, but it's probably the one you've probably seen the most. It's one that has a generator in. And in the game right now, I believe there are 6 caves in the game. This one is the largest cave, and then we have some medium-sized ones, and some that are kind of smaller in size in general. And when we switch over to the vehicle segment in a minute, I'll kind of show you the way that these caves are created as far as for how it's done in the editor, just for a second. Anyway, so this is one of the caves.
It's by the Shire.
Yeah, people refer to it as the Shire. We refer to it as Marco's Farm. Marco is one of the lead level designer, and he created this little farm area. I think it was the first area he created on the map, and so I call it Marco's Farm. But people, there are maps out there that call it the Shire. Anyway, so we do like to have our caves really dark, and some of them are not like some of the smaller caves on the map are just lit normally. But in general, the cave system, we want to have them pretty dark. So if I'm sure my screen's going black, so that's how dark it is. So let me get out my flashlight here, and oops, quit my flashlight. That one. Let me go back outside. You always have these problems on streams, you know what? There we go. Flashlight. See, the flashlight works, I promise. Yeah, this one's meant to be an old abandoned mine shaft. Kind of a mine in general. And when you first walk in, you'll notice there are the lights on the ceilings. And there's a generator in here where you can actually power it up and turn these lights on for kind of a fun little effect. It doesn't... the lights don't do anything besides just light it up. It's more of a fun thing just for players to do and experience. So right now it's aesthetic essentially to make it, you get the cool lights. There are items that spawn in the lights areas as well. So you will see items in the caves. So there are weapons and stuff that spawns in the caves as well. Down the road we actually want to do a lot more with the generators. And without going into too much detail and giving too much away, the generators will definitely serve a lot more of a purpose in the future than just powering lights.
Yeah.
Here's one of our mushrooms that's floating in the air. That's always awesome. That's an edible mushroom there. And you'll notice, people that played the game before, you notice the little pickup message in the screen is white. We're currently working on retheming stuff. So the white's really hard to see in a lot of cases still, but we'll adjust that. We're getting right around. We're getting away from the brown that you've seen in the past that we use a lot.
Those mushrooms can be used in crafting recipes and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
they only spawn inside, dark areas. So cave is a perfect spot for finding those.
right. If you look in the lower right of my screen, let's see. I don't think you guys are seeing my full screen.
Yeah, I don't see it on the stream.
All right, give me 1 second here, guys. I'm gonna see if I can adjust this. In fact, let me just change my resolution here. So I apologize. Let me go back down. I think this is the problem with the last Twitch stream I did, is it was cutting off stuff. All right, I think this will work now. According to the preview, you should be able to see my whole screen. So I apologize for that. Yeah, they're saying your microphone's still a little bit loud, Chris. Anyway. Okay, let me back up. So if you look at my stats on the bottom right, you can see there's the top symbol. This one here is the radiation. And whenever you see the blue in the game, this blue glow behind, that's actually a place that's been irradiated. And it'll cause your radiation to go up if you stay in those too long. Okay. Yeah, I'm playing in windowed mode right now. And this is on my development computer. I have other stuff going on. The editor's running in the background as well. I'm going to switch to in a minute. So as far as for the caves go, this one has quite a lot of detail in it. It does have the radiation area, as I mentioned. And then back here is a generator for anybody that hasn't seen the generator. So the idea behind the generator is has parts you need for it. So you need 2 batteries, dry belt, and drag and drop oil and fuel in, and then you can start the generator. And then you can turn off, there's 10 lights in the cave, and you can turn the lights on and off individually to light up different parts of the cave. You can see some of the lights up here on the ceilings. There's one up there. To kind of, show up different things. So the idea behind the caves, though, is when we first started the game quite a while ago, we wanted to have different environments and areas in the game instead of just everybody, above ground essentially the whole time running around on the terrain. We're trying to add more diversity and just more things visually and to see, and just more things in the game to do. So that's one of the reasons behind the cave systems in the game, is just to give more people stuff to do. And like I said, there's 6 of them in the game. I believe there's still one that nobody has found. And I've been sworn to secrecy, so I can't even give any indication or clue as to where that cave is at. But there is 6 caves in the game currently.
I think this is the only one you can light up currently.
Yes, that's true. So this one has quite a lot of detail in it. There's items you can pick up in it, and there are weapon spawns down in here, and so on as well. If you get lucky and find them. So this one was designed to make it look like there's little survivors living down here in the bottom of it as well. Let's see. Can you turn the lights on remotely for the cave? No. The only way to turn the lights on is you have to stand at that generator and do it. I'll make a little note about the flashlight. One of the things we do with the flashlight is, as long as you're walking, if you hold down the right mouse button, you can walk slow, which I'm doing right now, or just normal as run. We wanted to keep the flashlight steady, but if you sprint, there's kind of a disadvantage to sprinting with the light. We did that on purpose, so there's a lot more sway in it. And then here's another pit. You fall in here, you can't get out of this one. That one, there's radiation down there as well.
And nicknamed the Bambi Pit. Bambi Pit of Death.
Yeah. And this cave actually has 2 entrances. This is the back entrance as well that comes. So this one has 2 to go in and out. And I'll kind of show you this. So this is the entrance on this side. So try to make them look neat, neat, unique. All right, let me glance see if I missed any questions here. Let's see. Are you guys done with the caves? You mean talking about the caves? We're almost done, but then I'm gonna switch over to vehicles. I'm not gonna show where stuff's at in the game. There are a few maps out there if you want to see that. So, I will mention the caves in the future. We're gonna be adding AI and mutants to those, so they won't be safe in the long run. There'll actually be things to fight in there. We just are waiting to expand the AI system, which will be here shortly. Yeah, so the caves are mainly just for fun right now, just to, visually show different things. So like I said, you're not running above the terrain the whole time. But there are items that spawn in the caves. There are weapons that spawn in the caves, and like I said, there will be mutants. And as I mentioned, we're also going to be using those generators to power other stuff in the game as well. Let's see. Any other questions about the caves? Okay. Yeah, remember that the game is, this is the struggle with early access games is, in general, a lot of people want the games to be completely finished when you buy them, and obviously that isn't the case. We're still adding a lot of, we'll still be adding a lot more weapons, vehicles, items, AI, expanding the map, other maps in the future, all that kind of stuff as well. So, we definitely want to add more stuff. It's just, a matter of time and getting it done and, prioritizing everything. So the cave says much loot or not. It depends on the cave. The larger caves will have more stuff in them. The smaller caves will have less.
Let's see, was it Delathrolus? Yeah, we definitely want to have a whole bunch of caves at one point. Multiple cave systems, just the underground areas in general.
Yeah, definitely. And I will mention also that these are natural looking caves. You know, we made them to look what we thought were pretty natural. Have to take a little bit of liberty here and there, but in the future we'll also have underground areas that are not caves, more sewers, that type of stuff as well. So there will definitely be other underground facilities, probably even some like military style bases underneath the ground, fallout shelters, those type of things as well. A lot of this stuff is just very early phase. This is our first stab at doing first attempt at doing a lot of stuff. Do I understand Spanish? Yes. I'm not real good at it anymore, but I lived in Spain for a while. Yeah, I might be a little bit quiet, so I apologize. All right, I'm going to switch over now and talk about vehicles. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep these to about 30 minutes each. So, if you have any other questions about caves, feel free to ask those in chat as well. But let me give me 1 second here, guys, while I switch over. And let me know if this comes through. All right, looks like it should work. I'm kind of an OBS streaming newbie. I'll be honest. There's a lot of the stuff that I'm still kind of learning here, so I apologize for that. But
Calyx, Santeri, you can control the fob already.
okay. So I want to talk a little about vehicles now. Kind of switch gears. Sorry, I'm just reading through chat here really fast. Okay. All right. Yeah, I do have the preview running. It's just like I said, I'm still a little bit hesitant. I have some trust issues still because I'm pretty new at streaming. So, to start off with, what I want to show is kind of how the caves are made. So imagine this is a wall here that you can see. So inside of a CryEngine, what you can actually do is they have a tool where you can actually cut holes and stuff. So this is me cutting a hole in the side of this mountain. And wherever you see the white at, that is actually a hole through the terrain that a player can fall through or pass through. And then what we'll do is go in and add rocks around it, and add anything to make it look nice and you know and more realistic, more natural. But that's the way we do it. It's really easy in CryEngine. We can add this type of stuff anywhere on the map. You know, you know, there isn't any limitation at all. We can add anywhere we want and just start adding stuff underneath the ground there, and you can walk through the hole and walk on it and just go on. And that's how easy it is in CryEngine. It makes it really slick to do this type of stuff. And then when we don't want one, we just kind of patch it back up. But yeah, it makes it really easy. CryEngine is super awesome for this, this type of stuff. Okay, vehicles. Most people are probably seen the vehicles, so I'm just going to quickly go over these. Yeah, thanks, Dash Carlos. We appreciate that. Yeah, the game, we've been working on the game for quite a while, and it's been released since about the end of October, and we've had a lot of issues as people are aware of. And I do apologize. We don't try to use this stuff as an excuse, when we're having issues with the SDK, but we do think it's fair to let you guys kind of know what's going on and the struggles we're having. And we think the game is pretty well as well for how far along we are. And especially given our team makeup. We'll talk more in the future about our team and kind of the makeup of our team. There's a lot of people that don't understand kind of how our team is made and how it was formed and the backgrounds of the people on the team. We're far from a professional games company in this traditional sense. Excuse me. So in the game right now, we currently have 3 vehicles. We have the truck, and this is running inside of the editor, inside of the CryEngine editor. So that's why you see all this stuff you wouldn't see. This is our test level. That we've shown pictures of this test level before, but anyway. So right now we have the pickup truck, and this is the baggage cart, or as it got named in our game, the tow car. And this is what you'd see in an airport that has the trailers behind it that pull baggage around. So this isn't a futuristic vehicle. This is a baggage cart, and you'll find these primarily at the military base and the airports as we add them. And then obviously we have the quad runner as well. So on the vehicles, we wanted to kind of start off with a variety of vehicles and vehicles that serve a different purpose. That's why we currently have a truck, essentially a car and a quad in the game right now. And as time goes on, we'll definitely be expanding and adding other types. We'll be adding real cars, soon as well. We'll be adding real trucks, kind of more, I hesitate to say military style trucks, but larger trucks, kind of more delivery style trucks, those type of things. And I'm going to scroll back up here and see if I missed anything in chat. So I apologize if I have. Hopefully the guys in chat are taking care of most of you guys' questions.
Yeah, there's a question about expanding servers, but that's not really vehicle or cave related.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the map in the future, I think, in another segment. Yeah, definitely. So as a reminder to people in Twitch chat, if you put the word miscreated in your message, then it shows up as red for me, and it's really easy for me to pick them out. So if you have a question for me specifically, just put the word miscreated as you type. It makes it really easy for me. So on the trucks, the vehicles, I should say, they do have an inventory system on them. And as a reminder for the people that played the game, I am running in the editor in kind of cheat mode. And so that's why the vehicles are on the vehicle, even though the inventory really isn't showing stuff in here. So this is our first attempt at doing vehicles in CryEngine. And we think we're doing pretty well if you compare us to other games in this genre as far as for the features they have and how well their features work. So right now you do have to get parts for the vehicles in order to make them work. You have to put oil in them. You have to have diesel fuel. You have to find the battery, the spark plugs, and the drive belt in the world. Most of the time, you can find those quite a lot, but gas stations and stores are good places to find all those parts. And then you do have to find 4 wheels. Now, the wheels are actually all optional. The way it works is if you don't have any wheels, then you can drive at 20% speed for the vehicle. So you can still find a vehicle, put the core parts in, and drive it at a slow speed to try to find other wheels. And each time you find a wheel, then it increases the speed by another 20%. So that's kind of the way it works. So you need all 4 wheels to go as fast as possible. And the wheels can be destroyed. I don't have a weapon. Maybe I'll get a weapon in a minute. Yeah, let me just do that really fast. Sorry. Let me run over here. You guys can see some of all our little cheat areas. Let me ask questions while I'm running over. Do vehicles have a handbrake? Yes, they do have a handbrake. It's the spacebar when you're playing the game. You guys can see all of our inner workings here. This is awesome.
You can also press S. It'll be kind of the same thing. It brakes and then reverses, but spacebar is like your drifting control.
Yeah, so S is just your normal slow down brake type of a system. And the spacebar is, your handbrake. So you can shoot out individual wheels in the game. I just want to demo that. Would love base building. Yeah, we'll add base building. If people have been following the game are well aware that we've been working on the network issues. I did see a question a few minutes ago, I think it was by Big Dog, about the current player counts. So we've been doing a lot on the player counts for the game, and right now we have all the servers are at 24 players, and a couple of them are actually running at 32 players right now. And so we are increasing that. We were a lot lower a few patches ago, so we've been working on that and getting those back up, been optimizing everything. So yeah, all the servers are at least 24 right now with 32, and then we'll kind of see how 32 goes and go up from there. 18-wheel trucks, lorries. I don't know if we'll ever go that big as a drivable vehicle or not. We'll just kind of play it by ear. Just kind of see if it makes sense. We don't want to add stuff. We just kind of add stuff. We want to add stuff that makes sense in the game. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else. So on the vehicles, we will be adding more stuff to, this is going to change over time. Right now, these are the core parts of a vehicle, and then there's 10 inventory slots for each vehicle. But this is going to change. There'll be vehicles with different parts that are required, and then anything that requires different amounts than 4 wheels will also show up. And like if it's a 10-wheel vehicle, you'll have to find 10 wheels for it to be fully functional, type of an idea. And then the inventory is going to be altered per vehicle as well, and the slots will change on those. Alright, I'm just reading chat again. I apologize. So how do you plan on creating a sense of infinite replay value? We're going to be adding a lot more stuff to the game over time. There's a lot of the stuff we've kind of discussed over the last couple of years as we've been working on the game, as far as for some of more of the in-game stuff. There'll definitely be harder AI to fight, and that's one of the reasons we went with mutants instead of zombies. The zombies are so overdone, but we went with mutants so we can actually have different styles of mutants in the game as well. Different features, different abilities, rather than just the plain old boring zombies. And some games, they're to kind of get rid of the monotony of just zombies. They're talking about having super zombies and boss zombies and all this, so they're running into the same issue. And by going with the mutant route, we kind of solve that without having to make exceptions, essentially.
Yeah. This way, AI becomes a threat and not just something you can just walk away from.
Yeah, there will definitely be AI in the game that will require more than one person to kill. That's kind of the purpose of it. Remove the min system requirements. No, we're going through and optimizing the game every patch. And Crytek is also working on stuff behind the scenes. So, you guys don't really see this a lot as far as for on the outside, but every time we do release a patch, we optimize. And if you look in the patch notes, you'll see there's mention of optimizing stuff. For example, on the dev version right now that we're running, we went and removed a lot of tessellation on some of the vegetation, for example, which hopefully will help some of the people playing the game. So we're doing a lot of stuff like that. And normally at this phase of the game, alpha is you're just trying to get the features in. You're not too worried about performance issues. We try to be a little bit wise with performance. But beta is when you really start getting into really trying to optimize the game. But anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on that. All right. So as I mentioned on the vehicles, there will be other types of vehicles in the future we're going to be adding. And one thing that's really neat about CryEngine, it allows us to do a lot with the vehicle system. All these weigh a different amount in the game. They all handle differently in the game, different steering in the game. The There's a lot of different parts to them as well. These are pretty much all about the same. They're four wheels with steering wheels. There's a lot more we can do with vehicles that we'll be working on in the future as far as for movable parts uh, and just kind of fun things that we can add. We will be adding attachments to vehicles as well. We'll talk about a little bit about those in the future once they're ready to be brought into the game, but you will be able to create and craft attachments for vehicles soon. Higher AA settings, that's what CryEngine supports, and unfortunately we can't change that. However, I believe in 3.7 there are some new ones coming in.
Yep.
Don't
Hope,
count me on that.
hopefully.
But I think that's what they've said is there will be other ones. All right. So
Yeah, Big Doug, we're aware of that issue. If you change settings, 'cause a lot of times it doesn't change. So
yeah. So I'm just going to kind of drive a couple of the vehicles for people who maybe haven't seen the vehicles, and they do slide. You can kind of see me slide there.
they want you to go off a jump.
Yeah, I'll go off the jumps. Yeah. So I'll just drive these around for a couple of minutes and answer a couple of questions. But that's me applying the handbrake, trying to spin it around. And the handling, as I mentioned, a lot of this stuff is our first pass at all the handling, and so all these will be refined and improved. That's just part of the early access game. It takes a while for a team to get all this stuff in and get it kind of stabilized.
Yeah, I think since we first introduced vehicles, we've tweaked handling almost every single patch so far. So definitely getting better and better.
Yeah, definitely. You can game all this fun stuff as well. Like I mentioned, this is my test level. Our test level we use for a lot of the stuff. So ignore how awesome it looks. So with the vehicles, when you get on them, you do have to press the R key to start and stop them. I don't know if you can quite hear that. If you listen close, you might hear the engine, start and stop. But you do have to start and stop the engines on the vehicles. And then the action menu that's in the middle of the screen, I just wanted to mention this. If you use the mouse wheel down, there are actually additional options for this menu. So in this case, you can enter the vehicle and open the inventory from outside. Or you can just walk up to and press G in this case as well. But in the future, we'll have additional options on that as well. And if you have it up, you right-click to close the menu. All right, questions. Is there boost on the vehicle? Not currently. We might add that in the future. We didn't want to add it just to add it. We want to add it if it kind of makes sense, like maybe there's an upgrade that you can get to add a boost to a vehicle.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to add boost just to add boost.
It's a little arcadey.
Yeah.
Arcade-ish.
Yeah, it's a little bit too much for us. But we'll be adding a feature of your character sleeping on the ground. I doubt that. I'm not sure, but there hasn't been any talk or plans along that line, so I doubt that. One issue I've noticed with other sandbox games is lack of a party system. We've talked a lot about the party system, and we want to keep it organic and in the game instead of having like an external clan system and all that type of stuff as well. So we will have something to identify people that are essentially in your clan, but we want to kind of stay away from anything that isn't kind of natively part of the game.
There's a question about Oculus support.
If CryEngine adds Oculus support, we'll be all over that. They have to release the ability first. We can't add that. That's the core part.
Chatted with the Oculus guys at GDC and chatted with the Crytek guys at GDC. So.
Body armor, we will have crafted stuff for players, and one of those might be some type of a homemade body type system, for armor. It won't be. We probably won't be adding anything that's military. Like military bulletproof vests and all that. It'll be more stuff you would craft in the game. Yeah. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of questions coming in. Do you want to talk any more about the vehicles, Chris? About the parts or anything with the vehicles?
Sure, yeah. So when the vehicles are created, you see all the different pieces. The wheels move, the steering wheels move. Eventually, the doors will open up, so you'll be able to get inside of those. So each of those pieces has to be created separately and then brought in and assembled inside the. Like a lot of our artists are using Max for creating the vehicles right now. So it's important that just all those pieces are separate and they be able to move, and everything moves as it should in real life.
Okay. Yeah, one thing I will mention. So, like on the suspension, if you notice, even when my character jumps here, when he lands, you'll actually see the suspension of the quad go down.
Yeah.
One thing we really like about CryEngine is the physics system is actually really amazing. It's really well done. We can just do an enormous amount of stuff with the physics engine the other games can't do. You know, just from basic stuff. You know, um, oh, when you drop stuff on the ground, you know, you can actually see it fall and bounce type of stuff. You know, little details like that you don't see a lot on other games.
You can see the speedometer move on some of the vehicles.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a tow car. You can see the speedometer move. You know, the baggage car. Me. Yeah. If you look there in the middle, it's hard to see, but you can see the one in the middle moving. So the speedometer does work on it. On that one. We don't have hooked up on some of the other ones. But yeah, for example, all of the. Sorry if you guys. I don't know if you guys can hear that background. My guy's dying in the other window. To have parts already in the vehicles, yes. We just don't have a way yet to currently spawn items into the game with items inside of them. But that'll be something we're adding. Is that, you know, we'll have vehicles that spawn in with, you know, some of the parts at times, and, you know, also probably stuff in the inventory. You know, little items you can find and run around with. Yep. So on the vehicles, they are, like Chris said, they are made up of multiple parts, and this will be part of the attachment system, is adding kind of essentially more parts. So, you know, as he said, the wheels are different parts, and the steering wheel is a different part. That's why when you get in the vehicles, the steering wheel will actually turn as your guy drives. It's because that's modeled as a different part as well. So stuff like that. This one, actually, we could make the tailgate go down. You know, there's a lot of stuff we could do with this one if we wanted to. Because some of these, I believe, are actually already modeled as different parts. Drive the truck? Okay. Drive the truck.
Yeah, and weapon attachments will also be available at some point as well too.
I said this is my test level, so ignore all the other stuff. You can even take off some sweet jumps here. And vehicles do get damaged. They won't get damaged because I'm running the editor, but they do take damage and blow up and, you know, all the typical stuff, and start smoking. And all that stuff is, you know, we're adjusting all that currently. Different weapons do different amount of damage to the vehicles as well. So, for example, if you start punching punching a vehicle, you won't do any damage or very little damage to it. And different rounds will do more damage to it. Yeah, you know, kind of stuff that makes sense, obviously, there. But yeah, they do take damage from collisions and different weapons and everything.
Hmm. And I'm not sure if you guys had this problem, but previously with the quad, when you flipped it over, it was just you were just kind of screwed. You know, you had to just live with it. But now the quad
Oh yeah, let
will
me see
flip back over
yeah, let me.
if you can get it to flip. So
I found a good way the other day. I think if I hit this corner over here, that it will flip over a lot of times.
yeah, that was really frustrating and something we got some feedback on and tried as quickly as possible to fix. So you can flip the quad over now
Yeah, I'm not gonna spend too much time on trying this, but
if you can get the quad to flip now. So
yeah, it's actually a lot harder, as you said, to flip it over. In the past, you know, there are videos on YouTube of people flipping this over, just hitting the brakes, for example. And let's see if I get there. We go. Oh my god. Yeah, sometimes you actually get back on it, so I apologize, but let me see if I can get it to flip back over. Like anything else, it's still being adjusted. Yeah. Anyway, we're tweaking it. So bad example again, but
yeah, Browdy Max. Yeah, you can shoot the person or you can shoot the vehicle. So obviously you want to shoot the person off the vehicle and not just blow up the vehicle.
yeah, right now it's putting me back on. But it we will adjust this, but generally when it's flipped over on its side and you try to enter it, it'll flip the quad back over. It just isn't doing it. It's being stubborn right now. But that's the way you do it. Yeah, definitely. So you can shoot the players in any vehicle. So if somebody's driving the truck, you can just shoot them through the window, or you can shoot them through the windshield, and it'll kill them just like it normally. Yep.
The mutants can also do that as well. They can attack you while you're on vehicles.
Yeah, you kind of have to get them mad at you right now, essentially, but they will attack you when you're on a vehicle, and as Chris said, they'll do damage. Explode the vehicles. All right.
Explode all the things.
My weapon went away. I left it on the ground too long. Sorry, I have to run back over here again. Grab another weapon, and I'll blow one up for you. I said we want to keep these about 30 minutes. So I'm gonna be wrapping up here shortly. So if you have any questions about caves or vehicles in general, feel free to ask those in chat.
And we'll try to do this little dev talk session, quite a few more times. This will go over each of the systems within the game, answer questions on it, and try to clear things up for you guys.
Yeah, I'll show you also about the explosions here. Let me get these lined up, or close anyway. Okay. Let me bring over the other one. I'm just moving all these together, so you'll see them all blow up. All right, question. Can you fire guns whilst on the vehicle? No. We can do a simulated turret, which, some of the other games, that's essentially what they're doing, simulating like a turret. And we definitely want to add shooting from the vehicle, but it's going to be more what you would expect, GTA 5 style almost. I don't know if we'll ever get that advanced because their system is really advanced, but more where you're actually shooting out of a vehicle.
Yep. You can each vehicle has a few spots that you can get in on. Like the ATV has 2 spots, so it can hold 2 players. The tow truck.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The tow truck has I think it's 3 spots, and then the truck has 5, I believe. A few people can ride in the bed of the truck, and you can get somebody to ride in the middle.
So yeah, we do have a back-seated position on this one, as Chris mentioned. So you can have the driver, the passenger, the front, and then you can also sit on the back. There are a lot of videos of people using these, and then in the trucks, also, you can have 3 people in the cab, 3 people in the row, and then 1 person on each side in the back of the truck as well. So currently the truck holds 5 players, and the tow car, the baggage car, there is 3, and then the ATV is 2. So anyway, so they'll all vary. With the truck, there's actually 4 spots to get in. The 2 passengers both enter from this door. The first passenger takes the window seat, and the second passenger takes the middle seat.
So you got to climb over your buddy, get comfy in the middle.
Yeah, there for a while we were laughing about it because when you got in, the first person to get in always sat right next to the driver, so they it's like they were snuggling the whole time. And so we did change that, but it was pretty funny. You'd always have 2 people scrunched together in the cab. All right, let me see other questions quickly. Barricades, people are building lots of walls around towns and buildings. That isn't in our game. You can't do that currently. That will be coming. And a long time ago, when we started working on this game, we knew that if you allowed people to build in towns, that it would end up being kind of a mess and would also hamper players trying to get into those buildings and loot items. You're kind of giving a big advantage to the people that got there first. Is the idea if you allow people to do that? So just in our opinion, we're not going to allow people to build in towns. As far as for bases, they won't be in towns. That's never been part of the plan. Just because it's just an easy way for people to grief players. Essentially, is what it comes down to. All right. Yeah. Let me look at questions here, and then I'm gonna blow these vehicles up. What program do you use for CG? Maya, Blender, Max? Max and Maya are the 2. Most of the modeling is done in Max. The character's in Maya. And then Chris uses Moto as well, I believe. Let's see. So when does the next map expand? Just whenever we get to it. we're slowly rolling out, additional areas of the map. Right now, I think about a third of the map has been released, where you can actually play on about a third of the map, somewhere in that range. So we'll just keep expanding from there. For AI, there will be mutants in the game, which we have one right now. There'll be different types of mutants we add, and then there will also be a lot harder AI that's more like bandit, almost human level AI. We don't want this just to be a typical, the plan was never to have it to be a typical zombie game where you just run and hack through hordes of zombies. That wasn't designed. It's meant to be more of a mutant style game. Reinforcing existing buildings. We'll get into base building a lot more here in the future, but probably not. I hesitate to say that. We'll have to kind of see what makes sense. Our biggest concern is griefers. Anytime you give anybody tools to grief players, they will take it and expand it and exploit it. And our building system, if you go back and look at some of our old videos, our building system prevents griefers. It gives you exclusive access to an area so people can't build crap in your base and grief you and jump over your walls, and it prevents all that mess. Safe zones, no, there won't be any safe zones.
Safe zones.
And yeah, it's just not part of our game. It's not part of the design. And there also won't be any global inventory type systems as well. Okay. All right, let me blow this up so you guys somebody want to see one of these blow up. Let's see. I'm just going to get it caught on fire. I think it'll still work. Yeah, there we go. So starting to smoke first. I'm just going to let it sit there and go. So it'll continually take damage. There you saw the headlights blow out. There you saw the tires get destroyed. So as it takes damage, it just keeps going up. And I'm going to back off here. There you go. So it does. So the explosions in CryEngine, the way we have them set up, not only do they do damage, they also exert a pressure wave. And I don't know if you noticed, but some of those parts, some of the vehicles slightly moved. It's because when the explosions occur, it exerts a pressure wave that moves out, and then it also does damage in the radius as well. And I will talk about the repair system. Let me talk about the repair system before we're done today. So right now, the lug wrench in the game, if you find a lug wrench, it's the typical magic wrench approach you see in a lot of games where you walk up and you just basically, you sit here and attack it with your lug wrench and heal it. That's a very temporary solution for us. That is not in-game at all. Long term, you'll actually have to repair vehicles with scrap metal and parts and all that type of stuff. So yeah, the repair system is very cheesy right now. We admit that, and it's one of those things we just got in so people do have a way to repair their cars, but it won't be that way. Yep.
Yeah, so when we first rolled out the initial implementation of the vehicle system, it was like we didn't have a way to fix it, so people spent an hour trying to get a vehicle ready, and then got into it and crashed it, and it just started smoking and then exploded. There was nothing you could do about it, so this was just our interim solution.
Yeah, as somebody mentioned, we do need to adjust all the damage levels on vehicles. We're kind of working on that, and we will be adjusting those. As I kind of mentioned earlier, early access games don't expect a finished game when you get that. Expect that, hey, here's an issue. I'm going to go report it on the forums and let the devs know about it, and then the devs will prioritize it, and at some point they'll fix it. And that's where a lot of this stuff goes. And damage is one of those things that we just haven't gotten to the point of adjusting and tweaking it all, but we will be doing that soon. The focus was get the vehicles in, get the repair system, the part systems in, and get the handling in to where the handling works well on most of them, so they don't flip over when we hit the brakes, all that type of stuff. And so it's a very iterative type approach, and damage will be one of those coming soon. Yep. When base building is coming in, can you guys make it so you can only build on grass or something? The system we have right now, I think there may be some old videos on YouTube of the way it works, but you have to build on flat areas. You can't build on it makes a lot of sense the way we implemented it a long time ago. Like I said, you won't be able to build in towns. It causes too many problems overall. Some people may think it looks kind of neat or whatever, but yeah, it just causes issues. Helicopters or planes. At this point in our world, the map just isn't big enough to justify that, and so we'll just have to evaluate that in the future to see if it makes sense. But I would say probably at some point. Can you repair exploded cars? No. Once they're in this state, they are gone, and they'll eventually be removed from the world. They'll just disappear on their own, and at some point they'll respawn at some other point. Summarized list of new features. If you go on Steam, there is a discussion forum for patch notes. If you look at the Steam discussions on the right, there's a list of like subforums. One of those has patch notes, and you can go through and browse all the old patch notes. So that's the best way to do it, is glance through all the patch notes. Okay, let's see. A sale anytime soon. We're not going to discuss when or if we'll do sales. The last one was kind of I don't want to get into too much, but it wasn't supposed to happen, and it was a surprise to us that it happened. And anyway, it was kind of a mess. So, all right. So quickly, type any more questions in if you have any.
Yes, we have a Trello page, Gooby.
Yeah. Will you allow personal modded servers? Our plan is to eventually allow you to rent servers. Right now, Trinity Games handles all of our servers, and they've been very generous to us. But in the future, you will be able to rent servers. We want to make sure the game is stable and functioning before we start having people go in and have their own servers, because it'll just cause problems. We'll have servers that crash for some reason, and we won't know why. And we have to make sure the game's stable, the core features all in first, and then we'll look at doing the servers. But you won't be able to download the server files yourself. That has never been part of the plan. You'll have to rent a server from a server hosting company. The windows of buildings breaking. That's a great question and observation. Right now, the windows in the game don't break if you shoot them. And that was part of our network testing and optimizations we were doing with Crytek, because we went in and disabled the ability to break windows because it added more network traffic. So all that type of stuff, we'll look at getting that back into the game. We do want to have breakable windows in, yes. As I mentioned earlier, the network layer is acting a lot better now. And each update, we're continuing to work on it. And Crytek is actually working with us directly on fixing it now. They have already made some adjustments that we're testing. We have one server that's already running some experimental stuff they sent us, in fact. So Crytek is helping us on that. So I'm using DirectX OpenGL, DirectX. Yeah. The only version of CryEngine we have access to is a DirectX renderer. How many people on the server? 24 on most of them, and there's a couple that are running 32 currently. Yep. And the 32 player servers, we'll be doing some more stress testing on those this week. And if those look good, then we'll bump all the servers up to at least 32 and kind of see if we want to go beyond then. What we want to do is get to 32, make sure everything's stable, and then once everything's stable at 32 players, then we'll start adding a lot of these features in that we've been kind of holding off on. Base building, more AI, breakable windows, all these type of features have essentially been waiting for the network level to be stabilized. So, like I said, the network's looking really good right now. It's performing well. So that gives us a lot of hope. Looking at questions, I'm gonna wrap up this call shortly here. So I'm just kind of looking for last questions. Will it always be microtransaction free? That's a great question. We've talked about purely cosmetic only type, maybe player skins, vehicle skins, clothing, stuff like that. But it would never be anything that gives you any sort of advantage.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have
that includes like camouflage stuff.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be anything you ever buy. Some of the other games, they have crates where you need keys for example, stuff like that. That's something we would never do because, you kind of feel like you have to spend money for that type of stuff. And we would just do it as a purely optional thing if we did it. But I will say nothing has been done on it. Nothing has been started on the system. There's been no design work on the system. Right now, we're focused purely on the core features of the game.
Yeah.
We're not out just to to make money.
Strictly an idea.
Yeah. So yeah, there's nothing on the radar right now for any of that stuff. Yep. Do employees have to pay for CryEngine themselves? Yeah, they all have the Steam subscription. The $10 a month. Yep. Will there be servers with different maps? Yes, there will be in the future. Right now, we're focused on the one map, though. Vehicle camouflage or craftable visual changes. Yes, there will be attachments to vehicles. As far as for camouflage, we are going to add different colors of vehicles in the game relatively soon. But as far as for being able to craft colors, that isn't something we've talked about. But it would be nice to be able to use the crafting system to alter the look of vehicles as well. Yep. With 24 or 32 players per server, what do you do to make it not feel empty? That's a great question. One of the things will be more AI. We'll be adding a lot more AI and different AI types in the game, as I mentioned, now that the network's stabilizing. And on the player count, we're just going to play it by ear, essentially, and see what makes sense. We want to at least have 32, and then we'll just kind of see if we want to expand beyond that or not. For example, as a comparison, most of the DayZ servers, when you rent them, are, I believe, between 30 and 50 players. And their map is, about 4 times as big, and they max at 50. And so we'll have 32 in a lot smaller map. So you'll see people, obviously more often than you would in DayZ, just because of the person per size. But yeah, beyond 32, we'll just have to see. Real main game, no, no. I presume you have a question why you asked that, but no, there, a reason for asking that. But yeah, there won't be real many in the game. No. Yeah, so if we do the microtransaction stuff with cosmetics, we'll let people know well in advance the plans on that. We're not going to surprise people. We're not going to change, what we're doing. We'll let our fans and people know. Like I said, we're not out to bleed people out of every dollar they make. That isn't our goal. Yeah, so let me talk a little bit, just really quickly before I wrap this. So on the world, I think my other screen died. My guy died on the other game, so I don't think I can get back in there. But with our game also, let me see. Yeah, I can't get back in there. Our world is a lot more detailed. So if you look at the amount of detail in our game versus the other survival games on the market, their multiplayer games, we have a lot more detail on the interiors, a lot more detail out in the world. Our vegetation is far more dense than anybody else's out there. And because of that, it will allow you to hide things a lot better, but it'll also make it a little bit harder to find players because you can be walking past a pile of bushes and there 3 players are sitting there on the side of the road hidden in the bushes and you have no idea because of how dense the vegetation is. So that's one of the things we'll have to look at when we're balancing the player count also, is how often do you run into a player. There might be a lot of players around, but you might not see them just because of the environment is so much more detailed than any other game. We already have 4 towns in the game currently, and we're only 30% done, as an example. And there'll be a large town in the northern part of the map once we get to there, with bigger buildings, and there's a huge airport up there. There's some leaked images of people that have snuck up there and seen it, but there'll be a lot more stuff in this game than I think you'll probably see, and especially the vegetation detail is a lot higher. Let's see.
Where's the print button's got a good question about the dev team size.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more information about the dev team on a website, some updates to the website we're working on, but it kind of depends on how you count people working on the game. There's roughly 18 to 20, though. Depends if you count the people that are kind of contracting, doing like the sounds and stuff. So around 18 to 20. Yep.
And our office is located in Skype land on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, we have no office. We're all over the world. We've mentioned this before. All of our communication is over Skype. So, let's see.
Johnny Pyres, what do you mean about teams? Yeah, we have one team that's the other 18 to 20 guys is working on the team right now.
Yeah. So the grass view distance. So, like I said, I can't get back in their game without restarting it. But the vegetation draw distance is always something that is kind of hard because eventually we'll have sliders to control it. I will state that. So you'll be able to adjust the amount of how far out some of the vegetation appears. But it's one of those things you have to be really careful of because vegetation can make your game perform badly really fast. Just by doubling the draw distance on the vegetation, you're probably quadrupling the amount of of plants and grasses that are being drawn on the screen. So it gets really bad really fast on the vegetation. So the grass is something we'll be working on over time. And once the rest of the game, grass is probably one of those things we'll go back right at the end and kind of start adjusting and tweaking because it's a lot more important to have buildings and vehicles and players in the game than a little bit more of a draw distance on grass. So that's kind of where it's at on the grass right now. It's at what I would consider the minimum currently. Let's see. I'm gonna scroll up and okay. I'll see if there's any last questions before I stop this. Let's see. Any reward for helping players? We've talked about some ideas. We honestly haven't come up with any real good ideas yet. So that's something we will be discussing and talking about. But right now, no, there isn't anything. Let's see. So let me mention on the vegetation though. So the way the vegetation currently system works is all of the big vegetation you see here. The way that it's currently set is even if you're running on low spec, it doesn't give you an advantage. So what we actually did is we went in and took the player model and stuck them behind every piece of vegetation in the game and adjusted it. So there isn't any advantage right now if you're hiding behind vegetation. It's more the grass that we're referring to when I'm talking about the procedural vegetation. So, and we might look at doing, we've talked about doing kind of what the Arma series does, which you kind of, at a distance, the player kind of sinks into the ground and becomes transparent at a distance. So if you think you're hiding in grass and somebody else doesn't see you, it will still kind of hide your model, essentially, and make it so they can't see you. So some of that stuff we may do and adjust over time. But yeah, definitely we do not want the vegetation to be an advantage. We have it set to the same levels on independent right now of your view spec, of your system spec level. A new patch, we don't give estimates, but we're currently working on one. We're always working on one. But, so just a lot of times it's just whenever we get a feature in or something we're working on that makes sense, then we'll release a patch. So, yeah. Battle Royale mode. Yeah, Battle Royale mode is we definitely want to add it. I will say that. We've announced we're going to add it. The map has had a lot of work done on it for it, but we don't know when it'll be in. It isn't a, we want to make sure it's done right is really what it comes down to, and it makes sense, it works really well, all that type of stuff. And we also don't want it to be the focus of the game. The focus of the game is a survival game, and BR is just a game mode. All right, guys. I want to thank you for your time. We went quite a bit beyond what I was expecting, and we want to try to keep these at 30 minutes. But if people have questions, I don't have. I think it's good to answer questions that the team has. That you guys have, the fans have. So we'll probably be doing these kind of dev talks. I doubt we'll be doing them weekly, but we'll definitely be doing a lot more Twitch streams. Probably at least a weekly Twitch stream talking about some feature or gameplay or play with the dev session like there was last weekend. We'll be doing a lot more of this stuff to let you guys be a lot more informed of what's going on.
Yeah, and feel free to tweet at us or send us a message on Facebook or the forum if you have a good idea for a stream. Always looking for excellent ideas.
Yeah, we've talked about doing like actual individual developer highlights and stuff like that. We don't know if that would interest people or not, but if it would, just let us know. But for now, it's going to be more gameplay and feature oriented. But we can definitely throw in some, individual developer spotlights as well if people are interested in that. All right, thank you guys for your time and for hanging out with us and letting us explain a little bit more about the game. Several of the other people do have their own Twitch streams, So feel free to, and they're on the Miscreated. If you scroll the Miscreated page on Twitch and scroll down, some of them are listed there. So definitely follow those guys as well. Some of them actually stream some of the work as they're working on the game. They have permission to do that. So you're welcome to follow them and see some of the stuff they're working on in the game. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next stream.
Good one, guys.